we're fools. We're underestimated and boxed in. All judgmental labels spread us thin. We can run away to another place. No need to worry, you'll be my safety. We can run away to another place. No need to worry, escape reality. Escape reality. No need to worry, escape reality. Escape reality. Oh, we can take this world by storm. I couldn't want anything more. Just hear me whisper that your dreams lie here with me. And let the stars above serve as your remedy. We can run away to another place. No need to worry, you'll be my safety. We can run away to another place. No need to worry, escape reality. Escape reality.
Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Silk Masquerades. I am so happy that you are here. Hola. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today. This has been a week, but we made it. It's Tuesday, and I'm so excited for this evening's guest. All right. So, this afternoon or this evening, whichever you prefer, we have Cheryl Shavers, and she is going to talk to us about a very important topic: domestic violence awareness. So she's going to be coming up and talking to us in a few moments. Just want to let you guys know that if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and share the channel if you would. And if you're checking us out on the replay, thank you so much for stopping by. So happy to have you join us. And please leave a comment. Let me know you stopped by so that we can connect with you. All right? So please take a moment and share, like, and subscribe. Okay? All right. So last week, we had the pleasure of speaking with RJ and Crystal Ardain. And they spoke with us and shared some very valuable, I know it's information that I certainly needed um, regarding financial freedom and what that actually means. So if you were available for financial freedom, make sure you let us know that you were there and you gained something valuable from that conversation as well. Okay? All right. So I also mentioned to you all that today will be the last episode for this quarter. And that I'll be taking a break because I work for the public school system and I'm on a bit of a break, a little bit of a break for the summer. And so we will be back the 1st of August, the first week in August. We will be back. And we'll be sharing information on the Silk Masquerades Facebook page as well as the Instagram page. So make sure you stay tuned. We will be around and we'll be posting and sharing information with you. We just won't be doing the live broadcasts on Tuesday evenings for the month of July. Okay? All right, everybody. So make sure you stay tuned to that. More information coming up, okay? So we're going to go ahead and get started because we have this young lady, and I mentioned to you all, it's Cheryl Shavers, and we're going to have her come up and share this much needed information, awareness that we will need. And so I want you guys to welcome Cheryl Shavers to Silk Masquerade. All right. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Valerie. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for your willingness to come and to share with us. I hope you've had a great week so far.
Yes.
Yes, I know you've had a busy week having a recent graduate and all.
Oh, yeah. Very excited about that. Preparing her for high school now.
So proud of her. It was awesome to watch her. So I just wanted to get that out there. And wanted to thank you again for coming and talking with us regarding domestic violence awareness. But before we do that, tell us, who is Cheryl Shavers? Who are you? Tell us a little bit about your childhood, your education, your family, and what you do.
Yeah, I'll be happy to share. Cheryl Shavers is a very busy and tired person.
Yeah.
That sums it up right now in a nutshell. Just got my hands in a lot of different things. So I was born and raised in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. My parents were Jamaican immigrants. So I have a West Indian background. And shortly after my birth, I was diagnosed with sickle cell anemia. It's a very chronic and painful condition. And I spent a lot of my childhood and even my adulthood in and out of the hospital. And I often tell my testimony of growing up with three friends who also had sickle cell. And we spent a lot of time in the hospital together. And my friends' names, they were Kiva, John, and Carolyn. And we would reminisce and commiserate about this horrible condition and being in the hospital away from our friends. John was very quiet, an introvert. He didn't say very much. He was a cool kind of guy. And then there was Carolyn. She was very quiet. She too didn't say much because the majority of the time she spent in a lot of pain. And then there was Kiva, and he was the jokester of the group. He'd have you laughing. And just a really nice guy. And unfortunately, out of all of my friends, I'm the only one that's still living. Sickle cell is a very debilitating condition where I don't know what it feels like to go a day without pain. Every day I have pain of some sort. Sometimes it renders me unable to walk. Sometimes I have to end up in the hospital in order to manage the pain. But I'm just grateful for life. I'm grateful for God, because even in the spite of this condition, I still have the ability to work and to make an impact in my community. And I had the opportunity to go to Oakwood University in Huntsville, Alabama. So I left Canada to go to Huntsville. Huge culture shock.
I was about to ask you, what was that like?
It was a very interesting experience. I grew up in Montreal where it was very multicultural. And then going to Oakwood and going to an HBCU where it was around all African Americans. I was like, wow, this is phenomenal. People that look like me. And I wanted to be a social worker growing up. As I told you, I spent a lot of time in the hospital. And a social worker would come, a medical social worker, and visit me. and she would take the time to talk and find out how I was doing. And she was just concerned with the social aspects, where the medical personnel were concerned with my physical healing. And I was like, that's a great job to have. I want to be a medical social worker. So I went to Oakwood, and my last year, I ran out of money. And I did not want to go back to Canada. So what did I do? I started applying for all of these different scholarships. And finally, I got one. I didn't even know what the requirements were. I was just excited that I got some money so I could continue in school. So here I get the scholarship, and they're like, okay, we're going to give you this money, but you got to do something in order to get it. Lo and behold, Valerie, I was told that I would have to work in a domestic violence shelter.
Oh.
I would have to go out into disenfranchised communities and bring awareness to the issue of domestic violence. I would have to man a 24-hour crisis hotline and speak to men and women and children who experience domestic violence and help them with safety planning and crisis intervention. And that scholarship, that opportunity changed my life. Because I could not believe that there were people in my community who were living in terror in their home. And I said, I want to do something about that. And so after I graduated from Oakwood, I moved to Virginia, and I began a very long career working as a social worker, a family services specialist in a child welfare agency. And so I worked with families who had children who experienced significant abuse and neglect, children who were sexually abused, physically abused, neglected, didn't have food to eat, didn't have a roof over their head, parents who may have experienced substance abuse issues, mental health deficiencies, parents who just had significant challenges ensuring the safety of their children. And so I was tasked with coming in, assessing the family, making some recommendations, and above all, doing whatever was necessary to make sure that the babies in our community were safe, stable, and had the support that they needed to live successful lives.
Now, let me ask you, with what you came into, was that like an internship? Is that sort of what we consider a guardian ad litem?
No, not a guardian ad litem. I would work in tandem with guardian ad litems. They work in the courts.
Okay.
And they are tasked with making decisions on regards to children, making recommendations to the courts in their best interest. So the social worker and the guardian ad litem would work together. Yes.
Okay. So once you decided to go into this field and to get into, this is what you wanted to do for your life's work, and you're in Virginia, how did you maneuver into where you wanted to be?
So after working for over 18 years, trying to prevent children from coming into foster care, stabilizing their situation, there was an opportunity that came up to work in a police department to address the issue of domestic violence. And I said, you know what, I'm very passionate about domestic violence. I want to ensure that no one in my community suffers. And I know, especially for law enforcement, domestic violence or domestic-related calls are very dangerous for them. And so I wanted to partner with law enforcement to help address this issue. And so I applied, and I was selected to serve as a domestic violence specialist at a local police department.
Wow, that's awesome. And
Yes.
I would imagine that also for you, that can be sometimes a little hairy as well.
Very much so.
Yeah. I had the privilege of serving as a guardian ad litem, and even that could be a little hairy because you're going into a situation where someone doesn't want to relinquish control. So that I found sometimes that it was a little nerve wracking. So I can imagine the position that you're in is also, it can be a little dangerous for you as well. So
Yes.
what is it exactly? Because I know you said that in this capacity, you are able to give a voice to the voiceless. So can you tell us exactly what is domestic violence? Because a lot of times, things happen in homes and we're like, oh, that happens and we wave it off. But what is domestic violence?
And I want to thank you, Valerie, for having this courageous conversation. Many people shy away from things that make them uncomfortable. And it's important for us to have these type of conversations so that we can shine a light on domestic violence, because it typically takes place in silence, because people are scared, they're embarrassed, they're in fear, and they often don't know what to do. So domestic violence is a pattern of abusive tactics that are utilized in an intimate partner relationship to have control and power over a partner in a relationship. It was terrifying for someone who was going through it. And I often say, I've never experienced domestic violence, but just because it hasn't happened to me doesn't mean it shouldn't matter to me. And this matters. Every day in the United States, a minimum of 3 women are killed by an intimate partner. Every day in the United States, at least one man is killed by a partner. And every 9 seconds, a woman is physically abused in the United States. Over 10 million people are impacted by domestic violence. And we're looking at 15 million children in the United States are impacted by it. And so what happens is those abusive tactics that are utilized, they can be physical, because many people just think that domestic violence is just physical. Where there's hitting, kicking, punching, pulling, stabbing, burning. That physical violence that is utilized to intimidate and coerce someone into doing what you want them to do. But domestic violence is also emotional, psychological abuse that takes place, where the person might be verbally abusive to you, where they're calling you out your name, they're embarrassing you in front of your friends, they're calling you worthless, making you feel small, they're making you doubt yourself, where you feel like you don't have a voice anymore. There's also financial abuse. That is also a big one, where someone uses tactics to prevent you from either earning money or from being able to spend your money the way that you would like to utilize it. And so if you are working, that person demands your entire check and dictates what happens with your money, and you don't have a say-so in what happens to it. They can use up your credit cards, they can use your credit, using your social security number and opening up accounts in their name, ruining those accounts. So in essence, they ruin your credit, your financial standing in the community. Also, domestic violence can also happen to children, where children can be utilized as a pawn to get someone to do what you want them to do. Domestic violence can also be spiritual. There's religious abuse, where someone is attacking you and dictating what you do in regards to your religious beliefs. So, for example, if you go to church on Saturday, and they say, no, we don't want you to worship on Saturday, you have to worship on Sunday, then you are forced to do what that other person wants to do. If it's part of your faith and values that you return a tithe and offering, and that person has financially abused you and taken your money, and now you are not able to render unto God what you traditionally would give, that is a form of control and manipulation. Oftentimes, there is digital abuse that takes place, where someone uses technology as a means to control you. We're seeing a lot of people who are experiencing GPS trackers, to be able to stop and to know where someone's whereabouts are at all times, using intimate pictures that you may have sent and then disseminating that online so others can see. Also, in terms of digital abuse, you'll see people having access to your passwords, where they have access to your accounts. They might change your account, and you don't even have access. So they might send out emails, and it might seem like it's coming from you, but it's actually coming from that intimate partner as a way to try to control you. So I can talk about digital abuse for a long time, particularly when it comes to our teenagers. We're seeing a lot of technology abuse being utilized to have power and control over someone. There's also immigration abuse. If you don't have your legal standing in this country and your partner wants to manipulate you, threaten, and control you, they can dangle the fact that they won't apply for your legal standing in the country. They might keep your documentation that you need. They may also threaten to have you deported and to call authorities if you don't do what they tell you to do. Also, there's so many different facets of domestic violence in the way that it impacts people. And it's very terrorizing, or I'm sorry, I'll say it's terrifying to live in that type of environment. Even working with people who they use your inability to sleep as a way to control you. So imagine, Valerie, that you have to get to work in the morning and your intimate partner refuses to allow you to go to sleep. Every time you try to put your head down on the pillow, they might make noise. They might tell you to sit up and keep you up all night, barraging you, verbally abusing you, cursing at you, and you're not able to get the rest that you need to go to work. We've seen domestic violence take place in the LGBTQ community. There's a high rate of domestic violence. And so this is another community that needs assistance as well. And domestic violence doesn't just affect those who are poor, those who are uneducated. It cuts across all socioeconomic, racial, and gender lines. It can happen to anyone. And so there are a lot of misconceptions that take place when we talk about domestic violence.
Right. So tell me what it is that you have seen, especially during this pandemic. Has the incidences of domestic violence gone down, or have you seen a difference at all? What has that been, and how has COVID-19 affected the way that you do business in regards to domestic violence?
A lot of people have said that COVID-19 has shined a bright light on domestic violence, and it is seen as an epidemic within a pandemic. So we've seen numbers skyrocket as it relates to domestic violence, where now someone could be able to go to work, or they can go to church, or they can go to their community to get some respite away from their abuser. What COVID did was locked us down and locked many victims in the home with their offender, making it even more difficult to be able to escape and leave. What we've seen is that people who were trying to have a safety plan so they could extricate themselves from a domestic violence relationship, that money is now gone because they might have lost their job. We're seeing partners who were not very careful in terms of social distancing, so placing the whole household at risk. Maybe there are those who receive stimulus money from the government, and their partner who is abusive kept that money from them, not allowing them to be able to utilize those resources for their household. Unfortunately, the whole society, our country, the nation was impacted by domestic violence. So those resources that would typically go to help someone, they were used up helping everyone. So oftentimes those shelters were at maximum capacity, or they weren't able to take people in because they had to social distance. So they would have to cut down their census in terms of how many people they can have in a shelter. So now you can't leave to get to a shelter. Your friends and families were like, we're social distancing, where you could have gone to their house to get some refuge. You can't go there anymore because you need to be careful about what you do to ensure you don't get COVID. We've seen people become even more abusive. Whenever there's a crisis going on in society, we can expect domestic violence to go up because oftentimes stress can exacerbate an abusive episode that people may experience. So this pandemic really did a number on those who are experiencing domestic violence, unfortunately.
Wow. I know that working in the public school system, it was one of the things that we worried about most when things were shut down and we were all under stay-at-home orders, because we know that for many kids, school is a safety zone, and not being able to have that place to come to get away from whatever chaos is happening at home, there was great concern for students. So did you find it even this uptick in regards to domestic violence as it relates to children at all?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And any time there is domestic violence, our children feel it in such a severe way, unfortunately. And there was great concern by those who were in the education field in regards to children, because where they could have a break from it, or in terms of going to school, now they're at home, and it's undiluted in terms of the abuse that they've experienced and the threats and the coercions that their parents may be going through that trickles down to them. I talked to one mother who wanted to leave her abuser, but she had 5 children. It was very difficult in the middle of the pandemic to find housing, especially financially, to be able to make it on your own. And so oftentimes people will stay in an abusive relationship just so they can have a roof over their head. Domestic violence is like the third leading cause of homelessness in people who experience domestic violence. And so it was very difficult. People had to make difficult decisions about what to do to stay in an abusive relationship and have a roof over their head and food for their children, or leave and have nothing.
One of the things that I recall hearing previously is that oftentimes when individuals have been even rescued from those situations, that they often go back. Is that just because of the roof over their heads? I mean, if you've been rescued from that situation, why is it that we often see individuals go back? Before you answer that, I wanted to take a moment. I saw Kalea, and she is waving. I saw my auntie. Hi, Aunt Josephine. My Aunt Mary Lou. Thank you guys for coming by. And Natoya checked in as well. Hi, Natoya. Thank you for checking in. Adam's letting us know that there's some echo. Okay, thank you, Adam. We'll see if we can adjust that. But Cheryl, can you tell me why it is? Because oftentimes we see that in society where individuals will return to abusive situations. Why is that?
And so I want to, this is a question that many people say, well, why don't you just leave? And we have to bring a lot of awareness to this topic to understand the barriers that prevent people from leaving. Nobody grows up and says, I want to be in a domestic violence relationship. This is what I want for myself. I want to be punched. I want to be physically abused. I want to be manipulated and threatened and frightened and terrorized. Nobody says that. And so you find yourself in this type of relationship. And oftentimes there are many reasons why they don't leave. And number one amongst them is fear, danger. The most dangerous time for an individual in a domestic violence relationship is when they do decide to leave. So many times people will stay in a relationship in actuality to save their life. And so many people, when they do finally decide to leave, they have to make that decision that I'm leaving and I could possibly face death. So it has to be for a really good reason that they're deciding to ultimately leave. Oftentimes, their love. They may love this individual and want to give them a second and a third and a fourth chance. No relationship is perfect. And so you are hoping that the person that you fell in love with would change. And that is part of the reasons why they might go back, because that person might make promises to do better. Another reason why people don't just leave is because of finances, as we mentioned. Sometimes in order to face, you don't want to face homelessness. So to have a roof over your head, to be able to provide for your children. An example of that, I had a woman who lived in a 5,000 square foot home, a huge house, and she had 3 children. And she knew that if she left, there would be no place for them to go. And so she ended up staying in that relationship to make sure that her children had someplace stable, even though it was filled, their home was filled with violence and abuse. Another reason why people don't leave is because they're isolated from their community. Part of the tactic of an abuser is to try to get you away from anyone who will positively support you. They want you to be solely dependent upon them. So they've ensured that your relationship with your friends are tarnished, that your family is cut off, that you don't have anyone else out there that can help you. And so that's a part of the reason why people end up staying, because they end up becoming solely dependent on their abuser. Another reason is a cultural context. There are some cultures where domestic violence is acceptable. Some women may feel, or men may feel, that if I'm not getting abused, if I'm not getting threatened, then this person doesn't really love me. We have often in our community normalized abuse. I'll never forget talking to an 18-year-old girl whose boyfriend slapped her across the face. And I contacted her, and I'm trying to educate her about domestic violence. She's like, well, what's the big deal? He only slapped me in the face. There's not a problem here. And so there's a lot of education that needs to happen, because oftentimes if you've seen it in your home, you're more likely to then either become a victim or become an offender. So it's become normalized, and it's a way of life. Another reason that people won't leave is because of their religious reasons. If you're scared that you might lose your religious family, or you also feel like divorce is not acceptable according to your religious mandate, and if you had more faith, maybe you would stick it out and you would pray some more and stay in this relationship. That's part of the reason someone may not want to leave. Also, loss of immigration status. If you are in this country and this individual has promised that they would ensure you get your papers and your legal standing, sometimes you're going to stay in a relationship so that you can ensure that you can remain in the country. What happens if your children are legally here, but you're not? You may put up with some of the abuse that you're experiencing in order to ensure that you have your children and that you remain in their life. So there are so many reasons and barriers why people don't just leave. And so it's incumbent upon us to educate the community to understand that there are barriers that prevent people from just leaving. It's not that simple.
Okay. I see we have a question from Adam, and he's asking, is abuse caused by mental health issues like personality disorder?
I would say no to that. Abuse is a choice. Because an abuser doesn't necessarily go to work and abuse their boss. They may not abuse their family members, like their siblings. They may not abuse their friends, but they are choosing specifically who to target. And that typically is their intimate partner. And so it is a choice. And many people will say that alcohol causes the abuse. Alcohol could be a stimulant that might provoke an incident, but it's not the reason behind why someone would choose to be abusive.
Okay. So when you say that, we have to educate our communities, what suggestions do you have in regards for providing this education to the community so that it is not normalized?
Very good. I think we need to start in our schools, educating our children from very young about healthy relationships. What a healthy relationship looks like. With positive communication, respecting boundaries, understanding each other, and how to accept when someone says no. So it's important to model appropriate behaviors. It's important to have forums like this, where we have a dialogue and talk about domestic violence and shine a light on it. It's also important that we join with our community organizations who are in the fight against domestic violence and partner with them and give them more resources. As I mentioned earlier, that some organizations were affected financially because of domestic violence. And so they have run out of resources. And so it's really important that we rally behind these organizations and give them the funding that is necessary to be able to help them.
Okay. All right. So you're talking about starting with our schools and our educational system, and starting with, I think that a lot of times, I know I've seen in some elementary schools where they have little programs with their guidance counselors, or you have individuals come in to talk about what is appropriate touching and what is not nice and what is okay. So that may be something that we could definitely, or that our systems would need to consider for education for our children. So
yeah, that is essential.
Yes, yes. So when an individual does decide that they have to get out, they have no other choice, what should they do if they're experiencing abuse?
So if someone is experiencing abuse and they determine that it's time to get out, it's important to try to have as much of a plan in place. That is essential. And part of that plan is safety planning. Making sure that you're leaving at the most strategic time possible. And that your plan is solid. That you have some place to go where that person won't know where you are. So for example, you might have your telephone and there might be some GPS tracking on it. You might want to take that or get a new line if you possibly can. Because we've seen a lot of people who their phones are used by their offenders to track them and know exactly where their whereabouts. There's a high level of stalking that often takes place in domestic violence. So you have to make sure that you're going someplace where they might not know where you are, where they won't know where you are. Okay. Also, talking with a specialist. I appreciate that you have the National Domestic Violence Hotline, that information available. Call someone who specializes in domestic violence and can walk you through what is necessary for you to have a safe exit. It's important that you start putting some money aside because you're going to need some of those financial resources in order to maintain yourself and your family on your own. Documents. Start putting away your very important documents. You might have a friend that you can give your birth certificate, your social security card to, whatever important documents that you might have. You might start making photocopies of them and asking a friend to hold them for you. It's also important that you may have a friend that you can tell what's going on, a friend who is trustworthy. so that you can have a line to someone, just letting them know what's taking place with you.
Okay, so I see Adam is also asking, let me see here, were most abusers abuse themselves? So in your line of work, have you learned or found that most abusers were abused themselves?
I would say somewhat.
Okay.
What we're seeing is that if you have a family history of abuse, then there's a possibility that you can then become an abuser. So there are some who have that history, but there are some who don't have that history and still end up becoming abusers.
Okay. All right. So what is the message that you have for individuals that either are abusers, are victims, or for those who may be aware of a situation? Because, you know, oftentimes, like you stated before, we don't want to get involved. And, you know, that's somebody's private matter, that's a family matter, it's a private situation, and we don't want to get involved, because sometimes what you'll find is you get involved, they're mad at you, and then the victim goes back to the abuser anyway. So what is your advice for those of us at large in the community?
I would definitely say if you know someone who is experiencing domestic violence, that you would listen to them, that you would provide unconditional support. Being non-judgmental is very important. And just walking alongside this individual and their journey. We often say that the victim of domestic violence is the expert on themselves. They know their situation better than anyone else. And it's important that when it's time for them to finally leave and they realize that they're drawing a line in the sand, that there is someone in the community that they can rely on. Because remember, part of the challenge for people to leave is that they've been isolated. They've been cut off from friends and family. And so they end up staying in that relationship because that's all they have. But how wonderful to know that they have a friend who is not going to turn their back on them, who's going to be there for them, who's not going to judge them or put them down. And so that is really essential. And showing yourself as someone who is trustworthy. So if someone comes to you and confides that they're experiencing domestic violence, it's very important that you not go and broadcast that information. Because you just don't know who knows who. And that information gets back to that perpetrator, that offender. And then that victim, their life is on the line because that information was disclosed. So it's really important to the best of your ability that you try to remain as confidential and private as possible when that information is shared with you.
Okay. All right. So is there anything else that you would like to share with us? Any final words or any additional information in regards to awareness of domestic violence and actions and steps we can take?
I want to talk about our teenagers.
Yeah.
1.5 million teens in the United States every year experience intimate partner violence or teen dating violence. That's an astounding number. And especially our teens are experiencing digital abuse, where they have to keep their phones on them at all times. One of the things that an abuser will do is call or text incessantly because they feel like they own you. And you are at their disposal, and you are supposed to only show them attention. So if you don't respond to that text message right away, if you don't call them right away, then there could be consequences because of that. And so we're seeing a lot of digital abuse when we're talking about our teens. When we're talking about our children who witness it in the home, they are more likely to grow up and commit violent crimes. They are higher risk for suicide. and also to engage in destructive behaviors in the community because of what they've seen. These children often have issues in their school. They have an inability of not able to concentrate in school. They're jumpy, more prone to get into fights. They're very nervous because of what they've seen in the home. So it's really important that we open up our eyes and not become a bystander. There's what we call the bystander effect, where people will say, that's not my issue, I'm not going to respond. It's important as a community, what happens to you affects me as well. And so we need to bring more awareness to this issue. We need to talk about it so that we can help those who are living in abuse feel free to share what's going on and get the help that they need. It troubles me every night watching the news and then hear another situation after another situation where the husband has killed the wife, or the wife has killed the husband, and people say, wow, isn't that a shame? And then we go about our business. Well, now we have the opportunity to do something about that because it is about power and control. That is at the root cause of domestic violence. And so by bringing awareness to it, we can help people who are experiencing it. And pay attention to the red flags. So if you're in a relationship with someone and they are what we call love bombing you, you just met this person and they're already professing that you are their world. They can't live without you. They're giving you these elaborate displays of affection and gifts. And it's just over the top. And they have to do this to try to gain your trust in as fast a manner as possible, because they don't want you to see the real you before it's time. They don't want you to see the real them before it's time. And so they will try to have you get into a relationship very quickly. Pay attention if they always want to know where your whereabouts are, constantly checking up on you. You're in the grocery store and they're saying FaceTime as proof that you're in the grocery store. They're asking you to respond to their text right away. They're not respecting your boundaries. Also pay attention to their family history, as we mentioned as well. Someone who damages your property. Another thing to pay attention to is what we call gaslighting. And this is where the perpetrator will distort your sense of reality. And so they make you question your own memory and how things unfolded. They will often tell you that you're overreacting. They'll say that didn't really happen. You're too sensitive, that you need help. And there's constant blame that they're placing on you. And so oftentimes we say, if they can get you mentally, then they can get you physically. And oftentimes what abusers try to do is to break you emotionally and psychologically. And where you feel like you're worthless, like you're nobody, like you're not capable of doing anything, and that there is no hope. So it's really important to pay attention to the red flags, and also pay attention to the cycle of abuse that happens. So the cycle typically takes place where there's the honeymoon period, where I talked about love bombing, where they're showing you this elaborate display of affection and love and devotion. But then later on, you're walking on eggshells. There's some tension. You just feel something's not right. And then there's this explosive behavior. After that explosive behavior, they go right back into that honeymoon period. And it's not really a honeymoon. It's a lot of manipulation that's taking place during that time. I promise I'll change. I won't do it again. If you would just act a certain way, none of these things would happen. And then you go right back into that tension and then that explosive behavior that takes place. And you're in this cycle before you know it. And it's very difficult to break free from that.
Wow, that's a lot, because oftentimes I would think that many people would feel like, oh, this is affection. This person is showing me affection. They're, he or she loves me, and that's why, they're being so attentive and the gifts. But I'm hearing manipulation.
Yes. It is definitely a lot of manipulation that takes place.
Okay. All right. And Adam mentioned that Often abusers will talk bad about their ex, and that should be a big red flag as well. Thank you, Adam, for your questions and your comments this
That
evening.
is a big red flag. If they always talk about their ex and how much drama they have and how many issues they have and never take any responsibility for any of their issues that took place in the relationship, that's a glaring red flag. And many times victim survivors feel like they can change their abuser, and that's not necessarily the case at all.
Okay. Well, this has been a lot of information. I thank you so much. I want to make sure that we got your final words. If there was anything else that you wanted to share with us, especially, well, all of it is important, but also for our teenagers because they spend so much time on their phones and so much information on their phones and tracking each other and friends and the whole nine. So yeah, that is definitely something to look about. One last question from Adam. Of course, Adam. Adam is asking, is it true that most abusers don't change because they don't think that they have an issue?
There are many times that offenders, abusers feel as if they don't have an issue. And how can you possibly change something when you don't feel like it's your issue or that there's anything to resolve? When you feel like it's always the other person's fault. So yes, it would be very difficult to change if you're not taking responsibility for your behavior and your actions.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl, for coming on and for sharing that information. And remember, if you know someone or if you yourself, you find that you are in a domestic violence situation and you need assistance, don't forget that there is a national domestic violence hotline, and that number is 1-800-799-SAFE. 1-800-799-7233, or you can text START to 88788. Okay? All right, everyone. We want to thank Cheryl Shavers for coming on and for sharing this much needed awareness with us. And thank you so much, Cheryl. If you would, please sit tight for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, everyone. This is information that we all should be aware of. We need to be aware of the red flags. We need to be aware of what's going on in our communities, and if there's individuals that find themselves in these situations. So let's make sure that we are spreading awareness in our communities regarding domestic violence. And if you know someone that is in a dangerous situation, to try to offer them some assistance, or at least, as Cheryl mentioned, a trusting and listening ear. Okay? All right, everyone. Well, we've come to the end of another episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your questions. And it was great to come on. Adam, I see you're asking if there's a way that you can connect with Cheryl, and if she has social media. We will get that information for you and place it in the description of this episode. It will be in the description in the bottom there. So make sure you check for that. As soon as this is over, we'll place that information there. So just a reminder, in case you missed it, we will be away, Silk Masquerades, for our live broadcast for the next month. So for the month of July, we will be away. I'm out for the summer. But there's so much information and broadcasts that are scheduled coming up, starting the first week in August. So you don't want to miss it. Make sure that you stay tuned. And in addition to that, just wanted to share with you all, you know, what we're doing here on Silk Masquerades. We all have an opportunity. It's a platform where we can share our stories with each other. Everyone deserves the opportunity to share their gifts, their talents with the world, and you deserve a platform in which to do that. So wanted to share this with you. If you would just take a quick look. So, if you have a story that you would like to share, you have gifts, you have talents that you'd like to share with the world, with us, don't hold on to them. Reach out to us, let us know, and we will see what we can do about giving you the opportunity to share your gifts, your talents, your stories with our community as well. Okay, everyone? Thank you so much for joining. You know, that sound means that we have made it to the end of another episode, and it is time to call it an evening. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Make sure that you subscribe, like, and share with your family and friends. And if you're checking us out on the replay, leave a comment. Let us know you stopped by. If there's something missing in your smile, maybe it's time for you to bloom right where you're planted, and then come tell us about it, okay? Let's get into it, all right? Peace and blessings, everybody. Bye.